Joining us now from Capitol Hill, Peter Ducey outside Senator Marco Rubio's office with the senator who hasn't spoken out here yet. Peter.
We are inside Senator Rubio's office. Senator Rubio, this happened in your state. Who have you been talking to and what have you been hearing?
Well, we've talked to the local authorities who are in charge of this investigation, the sheriff's office, obviously the first responders there, and the superintendent of schools. It's a terrible situation. It's going to be a pretty dramatic casualty number. I'll allow the authorities to make that announcement. My understanding is some of the next of kin families have not yet been notified, and I also hope people will reserve judgment on. I've seen a lot of already people on television talking about why this happened. The facts of this case are important, and as more details become available, we'll have a deeper conversation about why these things are happening. But it's a day you pray will never happen, has happened.
And this is a situation where, unlike school shootings 10, 20 years ago, there are a lot of pictures and videos coming from inside the school. Is there anything that you have seen so far today that has stuck with you particularly?
Well, obviously, I mean, we had some of the students that were inside were using social media to document the moment by moment. There is one image, unfortunately, it's out there in the public domain of someone that was injured, no face or identifying features, but perhaps enough for a loved one to see it and think that that might be one of their loved ones who have been impacted by this. But this is a terrible situation, and it's amazing the amount of carnage that one individual can carry out in such a short period of time if it's well orchestrated and planned. And as I said, I mean, it's still an active scene, by the way. I mean, the authorities are still working through the school to see what else is there. But I think we'll learn more in the next 12 hours that will shed a little bit more light as to how something like this can happen. And
what kind of updates are you getting? Does the FBI call you? Does the governor call you?
Well, the governor's traveling there. He was out of the state. And we've spoken to local authorities, but one of the things we have to understand is they're just working their way through the building right now. So I see a lot of people out there on television speculating about this. I think that's important to wait for the facts. There may be more about this in terms of what they find once they get inside the building, and the numbers may change. They're still working through the building. There's a protocol they have to follow to ensure that there has been explosives. I'm not saying that there is. I'm just saying the protocol that they follow. So it's still an active scene, and not to mention evidence they have to gather. I mean, this is an individual who's going to be prosecuted for this.
And this is a school shooting where the individual suspected of carrying it out escaped, survived. He was taken to a hospital, but he is in custody. What should happen to this person?
Well, obviously he's going to be charged with a crime, but most importantly for law enforcement in the short term is they'll want to know if anyone else was involved and whether there's any existing dangers. Sometimes these things become complex. There might have been an incident that happened beforehand. You may learn that others have been hurt in the process, or that there's things left behind that could be harmful to people. So there's a lot that goes into this. I know people out in the news, I'm not saying you, but just in general out there need to report in real time, but there's a protocol law enforcement follows. The first is to prevent any further injury, and the next is to gather evidence, because this guy's going to trial, and there needs to be evidence presented in order to gain a conviction.
Based on what you've seen from the response, I know that this just happened a few hours ago, but there are probably a lot of students and their families watching. They won't have school for the next few days, but should they feel safe going back in a few days?
Well, as I said, I mean, we're going to learn more about the facts of this case over the next few hours, and as the public becomes aware of them, it'll shine light on it, and there'll be a lot of questions asked. But in the interim, I would say that for those who have not been harmed, we're obviously grateful and happy that that's the case. For those who have or have been impacted, or even by the students that may not have been physically harmed but have had to go through this experience, you know, we just want to ensure that they have all the resources available. Our school district down there in Broward is a phenomenal district. They're very well organized. They're already mobilizing all the sorts of counseling efforts that everyone involved in this is going to need. This is not the kind of thing that you expect when your kids go away to school, and it's not something that you know, people easily confront. It's a difficult thing they've gone through. The injuries here are deeper than just the physical ones, but our immediate thoughts are with those who have lost a loved one and perhaps have not yet even been notified.
Some of your colleagues in the Senate here from Washington, D.C. have already been trying to make this about policy and about gun control. Is this the appropriate time to be doing that?
It's not, only because people don't know how this happened. I mean, who this person is, what motivated them, how did they get a hold of the weapon that they used for this attack. I think it's important to know all of that before you jump to conclusions that there's some law that we could have passed that could have prevented it. And there may be, but shouldn't we at least know the facts? And so I think that you can always have that debate, but if you're going to have the debate about this particular incident, you should know the facts of that incident before you run out and prescribe some law that you claim could have prevented it. I've seen a lot of that on television, and maybe there is a law that could have prevented this instance, but we don't know that, and neither do they.
Do you have any plans to go back to Florida sooner than originally planned?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have a vote schedule here on an important topic on immigration, and so we'll have to evaluate how it is that we can get there and what what would be appropriate in terms of the setting there in place. But I'm sure that we'll be there at some point here soon. As I said, it's still a developing situation. I hadn't even thought about that far about it.
All right, Senator Marco Rubio from Florida. Brett?
Peter, thank you. Senator, thank you for the time.